Hello, welcome everybody as we get joined in here for our webinar today. Glad to see you all here. We're going to give it a minute or so as we wait for everyone to join. It always does take a few seconds for everyone to join in from the waiting room. So looking forward to having a great webinar with you all today. Good to see so many of you out there already. We do have a kind of a fun thing for you all today, which will be a little poll here to get us started. So while we're waiting for folks to join, if you could please go ahead and help us with this poll, and then we'll kind of see how the responses are from the group as folks start to take it. So for those of you just joining, please do fill out this webinar poll that we have here as we wait for everyone to get joined into the room. We'll get started in just about a minute, but so we have something to do while we wait. Should be interesting to see the results from the group here, which is where are you in your Nautobot journey today? Maybe you haven't installed it at all. Maybe you have installed it, but just getting started. Or are you actively using it, but just in your lab? And then maybe you actually have it in production. And then finally, like, are you using any custom built apps or other plugins that you might have had? So I'm just kind of curious to see general consensus from the group where we're at here. And just waiting for those to join in. And again, for those of you just joining, please do give us an answer on the poll. That'd be really great for us. Something interesting to get here from the group as we get started. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the webinar, and we will look at the results, but just in a minute here. But as we get started here, we're going to be going over it's part of our Nautobot Next series today, the foundational features and the fact that Nautobot is really built for scale. So discovering how to make the most of Nautobot's native capabilities to accelerate your automation journey. We'll do some introductions, and then we're going to talk about the object features within Nautobot, the API features, our pre-built jobs that come with Nautobot Core, and then the idea of Git repositories and how those are linked into Nautobot, and then of course Q&A. As always, please do use the reactions. It's really helpful for us to be able to understand parts of the webinar that you're responding to or you're finding interesting. So do use the reactions. They're down there on the bottom, depending on where you have your Zoom bar. But you can let us know, things that you like or things that you find interesting. As well as also just a reminder that we do have the chat disabled, so please use the Q&A box for any questions that you have for us. We love getting your questions. It's really helpful. So please do use that as well. And that way we can make sure we get you answered as well as share your question with the group. So again, for those of you that maybe have just joined, if you could please give us an answer on the webinar poll, that'd be great as we get started here. So my name is Tim Shryack, and I am the Director of Strategic Transformation here at Network to Code. So I work with our clients, helping them to understand of how we can use NTC services and Nautobot to really enable your business, that is, how do we link the technology to drive the business and make sure that everyone within the business is able to leverage that technology as well. So that's my purposes here, and we're going to go through the webinar today as well. So let's go ahead and look at those results and see how we did as we got all the answers here in from the group. So, great to see the responses coming in here. So, and I'm looking at this live with you all as well. So we have here just looks like, most of them, if you've installed Nautobot, but just getting started. And then from there, we have a significant group that hasn't installed Nautobot, but is you're interested in exploring. So interesting to see here, as well as we do have a fair number of you that are actually using custom apps and plugins. So that's also really cool that we have such a good amount of the group here really actively engaged with Nautobot, not just exploring. So welcome to everyone. Hopefully you're going to find some really great things here, no matter where you are in the journey today, whether you're just exploring or all the way up to building your own custom apps. So great to see that there as well. So let's go ahead and get into our webinar for the day. And we're going to start off with the object features, how you can tailor your Nautobot experience with the capabilities within the platform. So here, let's take a look at some of the features that help to empower flexibility and customization. Really is, how can we take your management strategy up a level? So first, there's the idea of data organization and access. These are features designed to allow users to organize network data in ways that will fit your specific needs. We have data automation and efficiency. So these are features designed to allow our users to automate the way they generate and manage data exports and integrations from Nautobot. Then we have the ability to customize to unique workflows. These are our features which allow users to really tailor the data model to match specific needs. This is a really useful concept, and really one of the core bits of Nautobot is that Nautobot can really fit this capability within your organization to be basically an orchestrator of orchestrators. That is, how do I stitch together all of the different systems and products and tools that you might have within your business, and Nautobot can fill that gap. Looking at its extensibility and scalability capabilities. So really designed to evolve and grow with your business environment. We have clients that are using Nautobot today that, anywhere from hundreds of devices all the way up into hundreds of thousands of devices. Our very largest clients are using 500,000 devices plus in Nautobot platforms. So the Nautobot platform is very extensible and very scalable. And then our user-centric design. Really, the idea here is to empower our users to work the way you want, so that you can have straightforward customizations, whether it's for newcomers or deep customizations for advanced users. The idea here is really to be a very flexible platform and to allow you to adapt the platform to the way you do business, as opposed to the other way around. Sort of a lot of the off-the-shelf products expect that you adapt to it. And our goal here is to really make sure the platform can work for you and what you need. So let's start off talking a bit about custom fields. So storing data that's unique to your network. So while, of course, the data model within Nautobot Core is very, very extensive and can match probably almost anything you have in your environment, there are occasions where you need to create specific custom fields, because there's something special in your environment that we haven't thought of or that isn't common, and therefore is not in the core data model. So this is the capability to add a custom field very easily from the UI, as you can see here in the screenshots. And it's something that we can do anywhere we want in the database. So that is, you can add a custom field to any component of the database that you would like. And it is a full first-class citizen. That is, it is not relegated off into some side area where it's not accessible by the API, maybe, for example, or available in a job. No. Nautobot custom fields are full first-class citizens. They're available via the API. They can be used in a Nautobot job. They can be used just like a native core model field. So there's no difference from a using perspective or even the way they're stored in the database between a custom field and something that's available as part of the core model. So this really gives you a lot of flexibility to adapt the fields that you store to things that you might need. So again, just something that's available for you here. You will find this under the extensibility menu section, as you can see here on the left-hand side of the screen, and it's going to be custom fields. We can add that and then assign out what type of content it contains and where it should be. And then even for you, there's some basic validation that you can do here right as you create it, that you might want to set on that custom field. This is one of the key elements of the concepts within Nautobot, is this idea of data validation and data integrity. Always important. We want to make sure that we have good data in the database, because invalid data is worse than no data, right? So we want to make sure we use these fields where possible so we can have that idea of good, clean data in our database. So let's take a look at how we might actually use them and how they show up. So here we can see on the device object page, we've got two newly added custom fields that let's just say we created. And we can see, as an example here, we've got, these values in it. And of course, if a user were to enter in some values for them, and we had put those, maybe a regex rule on there, and the user is trying to enter some data that does not match that regex, it will not be allowed. And you will get a warning message indicating that the value does not match the data integrity rules, data validation rules, and therefore is going to be rejected. Now, this applies regardless of how you try to enter the data. It doesn't matter if you use the UI, like we might see here in the webinar, or perhaps via the API. Maybe you're trying to send a REST call and try to enter some data that doesn't match that data validation rule. It will also be rejected, and a message will be returned via the API indicating that it has been rejected because of that data validation failure. So it doesn't matter how you try to enter it, it's not going to be allowed if it doesn't match the validation rules. So really great their way of making sure that we begin to filter out and have good, clean data all the time being entered in. Now let's talk a little bit about our computed fields as opposed to custom fields, right? This is how can we use Jinja templates to populate attributes dynamically into Nautobot? So the idea here is that we want to be able to say combine two other attributes or fields within the Nautobot database, most likely, and build those into a single field. So unlike a custom field where we're storing static data, computer fields are rendered dynamically. So we can have different use cases here where this might make sense, whether it's maybe creating a human-friendly label to easily consuming metadata. So again, we're going to go under the extensibility menu, and we will find that just below the custom fields here, we have computed fields. So this can be really useful, I think, particularly if you have some standards in your environment for perhaps port descriptions or device names that include building those fields from a collection of other fields. So here in a case, we're looking at something where, hey, we want the name of the thing and the serial number of the thing. Maybe that's the host name of the device. Maybe that's your standard. Or if you were thinking of port descriptions on interfaces, right? You might also do something similar to this, where you're perhaps using a series of existing fields in order to build that. And so then rather than having to manually enter that, we can just dynamically create it here. The idea being here, so that now we're not having to do things multiple times. We're ensuring consistency and getting good, clean data all the time because we don't have to actually enter this, right? So we don't have to worry about people making a copy paste error or perhaps, not following the appropriate standard. We're just doing it for them, right? So really easing our lives as well as driving consistency and clean data into our environment. Really, really useful concept here. And if you're not using this today, for those that maybe are using a Nautobot already in production or even going into the custom objects, this is a great thing to add into your repertoire as you look at it now. So let's see. I just have a couple of questions here coming in while we're talking about custom fields. I think kind of interesting to discuss. So, are the custom fields added to Nautobot accessible to network monitoring tools also? Absolutely. So anything that we create in Nautobot is available via the API or the GraphQL endpoints. So yes, custom fields are full first-class citizens. There's no difference between them and any other field in Nautobot. Does Nautobot allow the creation of custom nested fields to specify nested details? I'm not sure I quite get the concept of what you're trying to achieve there. So AJ, if you could maybe just give us a follow-up there, maybe explain a little bit more about what you're looking for in those details, try to answer that for you. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you mean by the idea of nesting the fields. So just give me a little more details there on what you're looking for, and I'll try to get that answer for you. Okay, so carrying on with the computed fields, as we think about them in action, they as we start to use them, right? Here's an example of that one that we just had where we were taking the name and adding in that serial number at the end there, right? So again, we're seeing it here right as part of that device page in this example. And we did kind of shorten that screen cap there, so it is a little bit easier to see that. But it will be on the device page where you'll see the computed field section and you can see where they are. Some ideas, of things that you might use them, maybe, for device age or warranty status, interface summaries, any number of cases where these might be useful. And as you start to think about the possibilities, you can see, a lot of times in our environments, we have fields where we build them from a series of other fields. So this is a great way to take advantage of that within the database and be able to leverage this concept. Now, tags. Simultaneously, one of the single greatest concepts within Nautobot or any other database, and also one of the worst concepts. And that is simply because they are so powerful and yet so flexible. So we want to be really careful with how we use tags and how we create them. Because what happens with tags inevitably, as soon as you have more than one person creating tags, you're probably going to have duplicate tags, or we will have situations where someone creates a tag where one person did it with a capital letter and the other person did it with a lowercase letter, right? For example. So we want to be really careful with how we create tags, who's allowed to create them, and how we use them. So always keep that in mind. Tags are incredibly powerful, and they're also really, really dangerous depending on how you use them. So we want to make sure we're super careful with them, but they absolutely provide a tremendous amount of power and flexibility with how we can put in metadata within Nautobot. So they're perfect for categorization, allowing us to filter results or filter the data that we want to pull back when we're creating a query. Particularly when, so let's say, a native field doesn't match your specific use case. Or maybe you want to flag, something as like an NTP server, for example, or your collection of NTP servers. You might assign a tag to an IP address, for example, right? That's a, hey, this is my NTP server. It might be one use case. So there are different ways in which you can use tags. Again, super flexible, and that's probably the greatest thing about them, and also the worst thing about them at the same time, right? So really powerful here for you, and always keeping in mind as you're creating tags, pay attention to that content type. Sometimes this can catch you up, where you created a tag and then you go to try to use it and you're like, hey, it's not available to me. Why? Probably because you forgot to select the appropriate content type when you created that tag. So if that happens to you, just don't forget, go back, edit that tag, and then add in whatever content type that you're trying to use the tag on, so that you can make sure that it's available to you. Don't go create a new one. You're just going to make that problem worse, right? So always double check that, right? It might just be that you forgot the content type. That's pretty common there. And also kind of interesting here, right? We can also use tags with dynamic groups. So pretty interesting idea there as well. And we'll just talk about dynamic groups here coming up shortly. Okay, and exactly, let's move into the dynamic groups. Perfect segue there. So tags, amazing. Better, dynamic groups. A lot of times, the reason you're creating a tag is because you're trying to group a series of things and you want to be able to filter on that. So you want to say, hey, give me all the, as I used earlier example, give me all the NTP servers. And you want to just pull that via the tag. Well, there's a better way, and that's with a dynamic group. Dynamic groups are a lot more controllable. They are less of the, let's say, Wild West, if you will, like a tag is. And you can achieve similar concepts, but in a better way with dynamic groups. If you're not using dynamic groups today and you're an advanced Nautobot user, take a look at them and definitely start thinking about how you might use them, because I'm sure you can use them in your environment. These are really powerful. Virtually everyone that starts to get more advanced into Nautobot starts using dynamic groups at some point. They give you a way to group objects together automatically based on the filter criteria. So now I no longer need to manage the membership of this group by hand. So essentially what that means is if I add a new device or some new object in the database that matches the filter type set for this dynamic group, that object will automatically become a member of the dynamic group. So think about that, right? Let's say here in this example, we're saying we're going to create a dynamic group that's going to be able to tell us all the lab equipment. So here you can see the content type. We set it to be a device. And we're going to create a filter that's going to pull in any device that belongs to our lab. So now, instead of having to, maybe use a tag or maybe use a location because maybe you don't have a, good consistent location, we can now just pull on this dynamic group and we're going to get all the devices belonging to the lab in this example, right? So really powerful way here to set up this concept of using groups to be able to get back all the things we need, in perhaps whether it's rendering configuration or whatever the case may be. So to create a dynamic group, you're going to go under the organization menu tree and go to dynamic groups. And of course, you can hit the little blue plus sign there, and then be able to start adding in all of the details around this particular group. And we are going to need to specify the filter, right? That's the key part of the concept of the dynamic group. That's how we're determining who belongs to the dynamic group. And of course, as you can see here, we can also nest them, right? So we can have child groups underneath our parent groups as well. And we can filter on things like role or site status or any combination of those things. Basically, any filterable field we can use as the way that we create that filter to extract data into or to extract who belongs to the group. And again, this is not like a static group where you statically define it and then you have to manually maintain that. You maintain membership of the dynamic group by appropriately creating your filter. And then members into the group automatically get populated in as required. And it is instantaneous. a new member joins the database that matches the filter, it will immediately become a member of the dynamic group. So there's no delay in that whatsoever. So again, taking a look at what they look like as we start to use them. Here's an example of a group that we created, and any device that is added to our Jersey City location, which is our lab, will also be part of the lab equipment dynamic group. So we can see here, here's that filter where we set that Jinja filter here, setting the location, and if it matches Jersey City, it will become a member of lab equipment. Now, as you think about this, what's cool here, right, is you can set more than one thing as your filter. So you have a lot of power here, right? Perhaps your lab is located in multiple locations, and so in which case you might have a list of locations here rather than just one. Or there might be some other criteria that determines that it belongs to the lab, right? So you could list that out here as well. So not only just the location, but also something else might be available or might be required in order to appropriately set the membership within to the group. So you have a lot of flexibility here how you might use that. And then we can also use dynamic groups to initiate automations based on that group membership. Perhaps we have a maintenance job which executes against our access switches, which are in the active state. For example. So then we can now say, hey, we want to get all the access switches that are in the active state, and then we're gonna go run some maintenance against them, perhaps, for example, right? So lots of flexibility how you can use the idea of a dynamic group as a filter to run a job against as a perfect example of how you might use it. So a lot of great feature here, really practical in the real world. If you are not using it today, take a look at it. I'm sure you will find a way in which it makes sense to use in your environment and will make your life easier and better. Yeah, saved views. The idea here is, hey, Nautobot should adapt to what you and your users and your community within your organization require. So we want to be able to enable you to not only do that in doing things like custom fields and computed fields, but also to be able to save the views within the UI on a per user basis. So here we're able to, basically save however we like to see and interact with Nautobot, because different users have different use cases, and maybe there are some things you care about and some things you don't care about. So we can adapt that. Because quite often, especially depending on your role, there's only going to be a certain subset of device attributes that make sense for you. You really don't care about the rest of the stuff. It's just cluttering up your screen, making you scroll left and right or up and down way more than you wanted to. So we can save those views here, and then not have to keep looking at or redoing that every time we come in. We can store search filters, column selection, our sorting preferences, and our pagination settings all within the saved view. So to create a saved view, first we're going to go into any object table in Nautobot. So anywhere within Nautobot, essentially, where you're seeing a list of something would be an object table. And you're going to refine your view to however you prefer it. And then you're going to open the drop-down menu here at Saved Views, and you're going to go to Save as a New View and give it a view name, and hit Save. It's really that simple. These are going to be user-specific by default, so everyone can have their own personalized experience, but you can also enable the Is Shared checkbox here if you want to share it with others, right? So perhaps maybe the DC Ops team has a view they would like, and so one of the DC Op members, or maybe you as a manager of Nautobot might go in and create a view that should be shared with all of the DC Ops folks, or likewise maybe the Tier 1, or what have you, right? You might have different views that make sense for different teams, so we can share those, so then people don't have to go recreate that wheel. They can just easily use that saved view as well. So helps you reduce friction, a little bit of toil saved there, and get you focused on what you need to do in order to do your job. So really powerful concept there. Sometimes it can be easily missed. We can forget about that. So we just wanted to remind you, hey, you have this really cool idea of using saved views. So here's just an example of what that might look like. So here, at the top of the screen, we see what the circuits screen looks like normally by default, and it's got a whole bunch of stuff. And maybe in my role, I do not care about side A and side Z, and that means I'm not seeing stuff that I do care about. So I can go ahead and modify that view and get it down to just the things I care about, which is let's say just the data that was installed and its commit rate, depending on what role I serve in the organization. So of course, all that data is still available to you. If for some reason you needed to see that, right, you could just exit that save view and be able to get back to what you might need to find in the database or whatever information you were looking up for as well. So let's see, I just pause here for any interesting questions as we're here on the view section. Can filter criteria allow Jinja syntax as well? So the filter criteria is based on our there on our JSON, and I believe the answer is yes. I'm going to need to double check on that one. So if the folks here with me on the call could help me with that one, I believe the answer is yes to that. But I think we'll get some answers here from some other folks here that are joining me here on the webinar today for you there, AJ. Do Nautobot docs detail the filter syntax? Absolutely, yes. So you will find those in the Nautobot documentation. So yes, we've absolutely got that there for you, Jason. And then let's see, does the custom field able to do calculations on other devices' data? For example, like adding allocated draw on all the racks. So I want to create a computed field that will do a calculation. I don't think you can do Python on a computed field. If I'm wrong on that, Chris, could you just double check that for me? I cannot remember if you can do Python on a computed field. So the answer will be if you can do Python on a computed field, then yes. If you cannot, then it will be a no. So that one we'll just need to double check that. We'll get you an answer there for that as well, Eric. And then finally here, while I'm on the questions, I'll just look at AJ's, looks like you clarified that there earlier. So the custom nested fields will be like nested location information as a country and then a state and then a city as a location for a network device. We'll need to get you some more details on that one there as well. So AJ, we'll get you an answer on that. So just give us a few minutes here. We'll get some answers for you. Okay, let's take a little bit look into exporting templates as we think about how we might want to get data out of Nautobot. So export templates allow you as a user to create a custom template to be used when exporting object data from Nautobot. The templates are accessed from the extensibility menu, and then you would go to export templates. So the templates are associated with a particular type of object. And in this case, in the example we're associating with here with devices. And then we can now create a Jinja template, which defines the data how it should look when we export it. So essentially what we're doing is putting in a view, if you will, on the data that we export from Nautobot. So here you can see this example where we're using Jinja to define what that should look like. And of course, because it's Jinja, we have a lot of power in what that could be as we export that. So here we're saying, hey, I want to get out the devices from Nautobot, and I want them to be exported in this particular format here. And obviously you can see we can do for loops, we can have if statements, so we can do filtering, as well as then we can specify exactly how we want that data to come out. So it can be really useful here. So rather than having to say filter this in whatever tool that you're using to export the data from Nautobot, now you can just grab that specifically. This can be very, very useful, especially if you're operating in a really large environment with a lot of devices or data within Nautobot. Being able to filter down to extracting just the data you need can be very powerful because it can save a lot of time. If you're pulling, let's say, hundreds of thousands of objects out of the database, that will take a few seconds, right? And if you can filter it down to just what you need directly within Nautobot, that can really speed up things, as well as just make your life easier on whatever that external tool is that you're using with Nautobot. Or perhaps you're able to export it in such a way that actually, your user is happy with that report, and that's all you need to do. That can also be useful as well. So depending on the purpose of why we're exporting from Nautobot this way, either way can be very, very powerful. So great flexible tool here, allowing you to adapt not only the view within the UI, but also the views that you might see as you export data into something like a CSV or any other format that we can export from Nautobot. As far as how we get to them, you can see here on the left-hand side, we have the custom export templates. And they on the right here, we can see the rendered result of what an example of what that might look like. So here we're just showing, what that previous one that we built, what that looks like. You can see here a nice list and pretty consumable report. It's not fancy, but it gets you the data you need in a very consumable way, and then importable into some other tool if that's what you're looking for, or maybe you're just looking for the report. And now I can see those details and have those there for me, right? So here, we chose the ASCII table. You can also export as a CSV. So that would be your choices as you go into the export section under the templates there. Okay, that's a bit about the object features within Nautobot. Let's now move on to talking about our Nautobot API and how we can use it to integrate Nautobot within our organization, perform orchestration, and just build on top of that. Right? Very powerful features here within Nautobot between the REST API and the GraphQL endpoint. One of the first things we did when we created Nautobot was to add in this GraphQL capability, which is really powerful, as well as the REST API. So probably most of you are familiar with REST APIs. This is how we can get access to data within the database. It exposes all of the create, read, and update and delete endpoints for virtually all of the objects within the database. And we can see a list of those endpoints documented via the OpenAPI or Swagger interfaces, and also includes native support for pagination. Some of the features available via any REST API, right, is that you can manipulate one object type at a time. So, hey, I want to add a device type or object. I want to delete a device object, whatever it might be, but I can only do device object. Right? And that resource is therefore going to be indicated in the URL, and it's great for large volume. But of course, when we're doing REST APIs, we are limited to just that single endpoint that we might be accessing at any one time. So if I need to update or retrieve multiple things, I'm going to have to make multiple calls to the REST API to get all of that data. And that's where GraphQL comes in. Particularly when I'm trying to query data from Nautobot, the GraphQL endpoint is far superior to the REST API most of the time. And the reason for that is GraphQL is essentially like a REST API, if you're not familiar with it, but it gives you the ability to use a query language to create the query you want to send to the database and be able to get multiple objects back all at the same time. So let's say I needed to get device information and interface information from Nautobot for whatever I'm doing. That would be at least 2 API calls that I would have to make, depending on the data that I wanted to get back from Nautobot. In the GraphQL example, I would simply form my query that included the device and interface objects, and I only make one call to the database instead of making multiple calls to the database. The other cool thing, though, is I can not only say I want multiple things, I can filter. So I can reduce the amount of data that I receive back from Nautobot to only the data that I need. So I can get all the data that I need and only the data that I need. And if you're working in a large scale environment, this can make a dramatic difference in the speed at which you retrieve data from the database. Let's say you happen to be in a really large organization and you had 100,000 devices in the database. If you were to go do a REST API on that's going to take a second. Versus if you're using the GraphQL endpoint, you might filter it down to just what you need. So perhaps you need some device information with some interface information, but you only need it for the Jersey City location, like we looked at earlier. In that case, you're going to include that Jersey City location filter as part of your GraphQL query. And now you're only going to get back, let's say, 500 devices, because that's how many you happen to have in your Jersey City site, rather than getting everything back from the database. Right? So really, really speeds things up, makes your coding life a lot easier on whatever you're doing external to Nautobot. So it can be really powerful for you there to really make things easier as you work with data from Nautobot, whether you're extracting data from Nautobot or pushing data back in. You have the REST API endpoints available for you, and you have the GraphQL endpoint available for you. So really powerful features there as well. Now, let's talk a little bit about Northbound versus Southbound APIs and what that means from a Nautobot perspective. So Nautobot does absolutely have both. And we have the Northbound side. This is how we're going to retrieve data from Nautobot. So here's some examples of what we commonly see at a lot of our clients that they're doing with the Northbound API, using, for example, the Northbound API to allow ServiceNow to extract data from Nautobot to be used as part of, maybe ticket creation, for example. Or we want to say, hey, ServiceNow is updating Nautobot that a new router has been added into the ServiceNow CMDB. And so therefore we need to push that into Nautobot. So either way, ServiceNow could either extract data from Nautobot or push in using that Northbound API. And again, doesn't matter if it's ServiceNow. Maybe you use, Remedy or, Jira, whatever tool it is that you're using, and it doesn't have to even be an ITSM tool like we have listed as examples here, right? Whatever that, where that external tool is from Nautobot, we'll be able to access that Northbound API for retrieving of data or pushing of data in. And now the Southbound API, this is how we're using from Nautobot to push out, right? So now instead of Nautobot being the recipient or delivering or being requested, now Nautobot is pushing out to other tools. So this is how we communicate with external tools from the Nautobot perspective. So, maybe one example might be you want to trigger an Ansible playbook that changes some QoS policy applied to a device interface, when the bandwidth attribute in Nautobot is changed. There might be. So, let's say in this example, you are updating dynamically into your environment based on some event that occurs within Nautobot. Now, when that change occurs, we can use that as the trigger to have Nautobot then go make that call out bound from Nautobot to whatever it might be. And you can see some examples over there on the right-hand side of tools that you might use and to access from, whether it's something like a DNA Center or AWX or, Tufin, IP Fabric, any number of examples. Even something like CloudVision. Really interesting use cases here as far as like how we can use Nautobot to interact with external tools via its Southbound API. And again, everything on those are just examples, as you see here on the screen. These are not limitations. Basically, any tool that's got an API, we can interact with from Nautobot. And the same inbound into Nautobot, any tool that has the capability to access an API can be used here. So what you see here on the screen are not limitations. These are just some common examples of things that we see a lot of times at our clients. So let's take a look here as an example of what that might look like for using the Northbound REST API here in a demo. So we're going to first just kind of take a look, as we had talked about earlier here within Nautobot, what does that API look like? So I just wanted to explain quickly and easily here. If you go down to the bottom of any Nautobot screen, you're going to see down here at the bottom, we have the API link and the GraphQL endpoint link. So these are the easiest ways to get to these. If you don't favorite them, you can always come down here. They're right here for you. So here's the API link, and I do have it launched already over here on this tab. We can see here what the GraphQL endpoint, the Swagger interface looks like. Pretty cool here because you can not only explore and see what the documentation is around the API endpoints, you can also test them out. So if you're not familiar with the Swagger interface, it does give you the capability to actually do a test on those, right? So you can actually run the get here from within Nautobot. If you were to authorize it with appropriate token, you could also then go and even do puts or actually updating information into Nautobot as well. So pretty cool feature here that you can test it out from within Nautobot. And this is the root here of the tree. So if you were to do some exploring around, you would be able to see all of the API endpoints, of course, that we have available. It's basically going to be every single object that's in the database. So you might want to do some searches or finds for the things you're looking for particularly, but a lot of detail here for you. Basically, every endpoint is available for you to do tests on, to play around with, to understand how the API works. If you're doing some developing or testing, this is a great way to understand that. So as an example here, let's just take a look at, let's say we wanted to actually go, start using this, and we'll do a test using Postman just to kind of show you what it looks like from an external perspective, not just from within Nautobot. So if we were to want to get started here, the first thing we're going to need to do is create a token. So if you go down into the user, then you're going to go to Profile, and you're going to go to your API tokens section here, and we're going to add one. As you can see here, we have a few here, but let's just add a new one. So we're going to say, hey, we're doing a webinar, and we need a token for that. And then we're also going, you have the option whether or not you want to set some expiration date on that. And perhaps you wanted to put a description in so you understand why you created this token, can be pretty useful. So let's go ahead and create that there. And now we will have the token. But of course, as you see here, we do have that data validation, which indicates that I did something wrong. So let me just, I believe it's because I put a space there. It does not like that. So let's get that created in here. Oh, it's because I was putting it in as the key. Sorry about that, and not the description. I was supposed to put it down in the description. I knew that, but mistakenly did that there. So I'm going to let it dynamically create the key for me rather than try to do it myself. So now we've created that token key, and now we need to start to take use of it, right? So I'm just going to use the handy copy button over there so I can get that copied. And we're going to now pivot over to the Postman side of the world to see what that looks like. So in this case, let's just say we wanted to do a get against our users here, and I did already pre-populate that in just to make it easier here in the webinar. And so I'm going to provide the authentication of the token here within my call to the API. And we're going to send that out. And as you can see here, here's the results. Now, of course, they're coming back in JSON format. So if you pop this into a JSON interpreter, it can be a little bit easier to understand. You can see the details that are coming back here. Of course, this is primarily intended for machines, not for humans. So of course, we're looking at some JSON detail, but you get the idea there of how you might test that out and prove that the API works external to Nautobot, not just from within the Nautobot interface. So now we can see that response there. And we can use this in whether it's, we're writing our scripts, perhaps you want to pull some data into some script that you're writing external to Nautobot. Great way to do that. We could get back, all the devices we need and all of those things that we might need there as we look at using the Nautobot API. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the pre-built jobs that are available within Nautobot. These are jobs that just come as part of the Nautobot core, and even some then that get installed later along as you start to install applications within Nautobot as well. These can be really useful for you, depending on what they're there for. Now, these jobs here primarily exist for purposes within the UI to help things move along, but they are available to you to use as well, just as a user. So something to always keep in mind. Sometimes, there's something you want to do, especially when you're doing bulk operations, where, hey, there might already be a job available to do that thing. And that can be a lot easier to use the job rather than say go through the UI directly. And some of the great examples I can think of here is, hey, I want to go remove a series of devices based on some criteria. Hey, you might want to just use the bulk delete objects job. That can really make your life a lot easier. Or the same with editing. I want to make an update. Maybe I want to go change all device descriptions to match some specific thing. Here we could easily do that via the bulk update job. So different ways in which you might use these jobs, and they can all be run from within the jobs menu tree. So you're always going to go to your jobs screen here, and then you have those will be available for you in that UI. Other existing ones here, some, maybe you want to import, maybe you want to do a cleanup on your logs, any number of cases where we have things that can be really useful to us to be able to get things done more efficiently and better in the way that we're doing our jobs, right? So just thinking about, whether or not you know how to create a job or not, doesn't matter. These are already there for you to use. You can just consume them. You don't have to worry about creating one. Let's drill a little bit into Git repositories as well here. So we're going to start to think about how Git repositories are linked in Nautobot, and then we'll also look at an example of using a job as part of that Git repository concept, right? So Nautobot can synchronize between an external Git repository in order to import and manage our network-related data, execute jobs, generate config files, and more, right? So we are enabling the idea of version controlling and collaborative management practices within your organization, really helping you to create those DevOps workflows as you use Nautobot and you want to version data or concepts from Nautobot or to Nautobot. So repositories are managed in Nautobot under the extensibility menu tree, and you will find the Get Repositories submenu. From here, you can view, manage all synced Git repositories, and it doesn't matter whether they're public or private. We support both. For the private repos, you will need to configure a secret and a secret group in order to store those appropriate credentials, but otherwise the access would be the same whether it's public or private once you get those credentials in there for the private repository. Repository folder structure does matter. So for example, Nautobot expects a jobs folder directory at the root level if the repository contains custom jobs. So what do I mean by that? That means as we look at the idea here within the screen of Git repositories, right? We have the URL of the repository, the branch that we want to pull from, and then its purpose in life here on the Nautobot side of the world, right? So if we say this particular repository serves the purpose of jobs, then Nautobot is going to expect, let me just get back to the appropriate slide there. Nautobot is going to expect to see a folder with jobs at the top of that repository. So just keep that in mind as you're creating repositories. As you select what the provides field is, that is going to determine what Nautobot is expecting within that repository to find in order to locate the appropriate data. So this means that you can potentially have a single repository that provides more than one thing because of that folder structure. So that's where you get that idea from there. But generally speaking, we do recommend as good practice that you would use separate repositories for different provides here on the Nautobot side. It's not required. You do have a lot of flexibility there, but it is what we see generally as good practice. You want to separate these out just for ease of use for humans to keep things more organized and more structured. So you can see that down here on the bottom as we start to, if we were to add a new one, we're going to, populate in just a name that we're going to call this thing here on the Nautobot side of the world, what that URL is, the branch we want to pull from, and then finally, what purpose does it provide here on the Nautobot side, and of course secrets if we were doing a private repo. We can use repositories for automating and managing jobs. We could keep custom configuration under version control. So perhaps you want to have a YAML file that stores some data over in Nautobot, and then you want to pull that into a config context within Nautobot as an example. Right? Data that comes into Nautobot does not have to come from the Nautobot database. It could come externally from, say, a YAML file that you store in Get. It's a perfect example of how you might use that. We often see people doing that for things that you want to control more carefully. So perhaps you want to have your NTP servers listed in a YAML file rather than storing them in the Nautobot database. That'd be one way you could do that. We can also enable our CI/CD pipelines to automatically update Nautobot content via this concept, right? So pretty interesting ideas here that come using the Git repositories in our environment. So let's take a quick look at just kind of, how we might do that and what that looks like. So we're going to go into our Nautobot example here again, and we'll go back into extensibility, and we're going to go into those Git repositories. And in this case, let's go ahead and add a new repository. So we'll go to add repository, and we're going to create one here. We'll just do it for our webinar jobs, let's say. Maybe we want to use the Git repository as a way to sync jobs, right? So here I'm going to just quickly copy a URL that we've got. And this one actually is part of our 100 Days of Nautobot, if you're not familiar with, a really great course coming from Eric Chow here at NTC. So please do check that out if you're interested. It's a really excellent way to get familiar with Nautobot. Now, in this case, it's a public repo, so I don't need to worry about secrets. And I'm going to say that it serves the purpose of jobs. And then I'm now going to go down and create and dry run. So this means that it's going to create the concept within Nautobot, and it's going to do a dry run of pulling in data from that repo. It didn't actually pull any data in because we did the dry run, right? It's just a test, make sure all works. And we can see here what it would have done, and we say everything is cool. So, okay, great. That did work as we expected. So now we can go ahead and sync it. If there was a problem, we'd want to go resolve that. Maybe it's a private repo and you accidentally put the wrong or secrets in, or perhaps maybe the menu tree wasn't, the folder tree wasn't properly created over in the repo. We would be alerted to that, and we could fix that before we proceeded, right? So now we're going to go ahead and sync that and actually run it. So we can see here now we actually went out and pulled all of that data from that repo, brought it into Nautobot, and here we have a complete. So now we can actually go over to our jobs and we're going to take a look at what that looks like now, right? So what happened after we did that? So we're going to see as we scroll down here, the jobs have now been added into Nautobot. And we're going to find them way down here at the bottom since it was a webinar jobs, right? And you can see here, here's the job that was synced into Nautobot. Now, you'll notice that it is not enabled, and that is by design. So by design, whenever we add a new job in Nautobot, it is not going to be automatically enabled. And that's because we want to make sure that you are intentionally doing what you're about to do, because jobs are really powerful. And we don't want to accidentally bring something in that we didn't intend for. Right? So we're going to go ahead and enable that. And then we're going to click on the update. And there we go. So that should have actually, and that's right. I intentionally left this here just to remind us that, hey, sometimes we forget to do things within Nautobot. And the great thing about Nautobot, we're going to tell you that. We're going to say, hey, this field is required. So we'll just go ahead and now select that, get that updated. And now we should actually get a successful update and enable that job correctly. There we go. So now we can see, hey, it's enabled. It's no longer grayed out. And now we can go ahead and execute or run it. So we took care of that. So now let's actually go and do it. So we can do that either by clicking the blue play button over here, or you could also, drill into it and see here, where we see that queue there, and we could run it here from, either place, right? So as within all things within Nautobot, there's usually two places you can execute from, either that shortcut at the beginning, or if you drill in, you can also execute as well. And of course, by coming into it, we can actually see the details. And hey, we went out, we actually ran that job and, synced in this case, it was pulling in additional jobs from the get repo is what this job actually did, right? So great features available for you here within the Nautobot platform. Now, I know we all have been asking questions, and I did a little different on this webinar here, kind of interacting with you as we went. Hopefully you enjoyed that and were able to get some answers to you more quickly as we went through when it was relevant in your mind. Any other questions, please do pop them in here for us as we come up to the end of the webinar. This is the perfect time for that as we have a Q&A. So again, as I mentioned, I know that we hit those there for you. So any other questions, please do pop them in as we complete. I'll definitely get you answers here before we finish out if you have any other additional questions. So just a quick recap. Hey, we went over those object features. We took a look at the API and its capabilities north and southbound, some of the pre-built jobs that come with Nautobot, and of course, the idea of using Get repositories and why you might want to within Nautobot ecosystem. For those here joining the webinar today, we just wanted to quick talk about Nautobot Extensibility Workshop. So if you enjoyed this webinar that we had, but you want to go deeper and spend some time really understanding how you can use Nautobot and extend it to adapt it to your environment, this is a great way to do that. Get signed up for the course here, and we've got a cool feature here for you. You can save $100 off that course with the code you got down there on the bottom, the webinar 100. So definitely think about taking this course. It's really detailed, it's really practical, and it's going to give you stuff that you can start using immediately as far as how you can start to consume Nautobot and leverage it better in your environment. I just got a quick question coming in here from Sean as well. So thanks for that, Sean. Could you use the GraphQL query along with the job to create and push a network config to a device? Is that recommended, or would you suggest a different method? So it's possible, absolutely, right? So you could have some external tool or script that is doing a GraphQL query, then populating that in and then using that to feed into a Nautobot job. That's absolutely possible. Yes, the platform is super flexible. But you might not need to do that, right? So one of the things you can do within your Nautobot jobs is you do have direct access to the database as part of your job in your Python code. So you don't actually need to perform GraphQL queries within the job itself. Hopefully that makes sense, right? So it depends on how you're executing the job. If you're executing the job externally, that is, you have some external code that needs to run and process, and then it's going to feed data into that job in order for the job to do work. That would be one way. And in that case, you would use the GraphQL query. But generally speaking, probably most of the time, you can run that job directly on the platform itself. That is, in the job, you have direct access to the database within your Python code of the job, and therefore you don't actually need to run a GraphQL query. So hopefully that makes sense. You would probably most likely not need the GraphQL endpoint in that case. But Depends on how you're executing the job and how you're using it. So it's going to be flexible there. You can always chat with us in the public Slack if you are not on Nautobot support or on Nautobot Cloud. But if you are a consumer of Nautobot Cloud or have Nautobot support from NTC, of course, just open a ticket with us, and we'd be happy to get on with you and help you figure out what's the best way for you. Another question coming in here. Let's see. There's prerequisites, source of truth, and Nautobot fundamentals workshop or introductory knowledge of Nautobot. This training has prerequisites. There's no upcoming webinar training on it. Looks like Christy is typing an answer for you there, so I'll let Christy answer that. But absolutely, we can work with you on that, so don't worry about that. Christy's going to get you the details on that. Okay, as I had mentioned earlier as well, we do have the 100 Days of Nautobot with Eric. Really, really great self-driven, self-directed course. It includes practical applications, practical labs that you go through with, and it takes you through the basically very detailed work within Nautobot. It gives you a little bit of work to do every day for 100 days. So it's not overly difficult each day as you start to break down the overall concepts. And by the end of the 100 days, if you stick with it and make it your way through the process, you will have gained a tremendous amount of knowledge and concepts within Nautobot. So segment 1 within the 100 days covers Nautobot jobs basics. Segment 2 goes over advanced topics with Nautobot jobs. And then segments 3 and 4 are all about Nautobot apps, right? So again, we have an intro to Nautobot apps and then some detailed topics within Nautobot apps. And one of the common questions we get is a job versus an app. So both are based on Python code. Nautobot job is a relatively straightforward way to add some Python code to in Nautobot to do some work, whether it's filtering a query within your Python code, enabling business logic, or just making an easier way for users to do something. Those are all great uses for a job. When, generally speaking, the reason why you would need a Nautobot app is that you want to make updates to the database model. So maybe you want to add a new table to the database as part of your application or thing that you want to do within Nautobot. That's when you're going to want to use an app, as well as if you want to update and inject menu trees as well. Not apps can enable that concept as well. So if I want to have a high-level menu tree added in, I would use an app to do that as opposed to a job. Those are the main reasons. There are, of course, other details, but those are the main reasons why I might choose a job versus an app. So again, thanks for all of you for attending here today. Here's some links to all things Nautobot. If you're looking for a personal demo, please do reach out to us. We'd be happy to get you linked up with our sales team and one of our sales engineers, and we can go through a detailed demo. You can ask live questions, and we can show you all the advantages that Nautobot can bring to your environment as you are working and exploring the ideas of Nautobot. So thanks everyone for attending. Look forward to seeing you on the next webinar.